Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello, hello. We got an event to talk about. This came out of nowhere, really.
Yeah,
We
totally out of
were,
nowhere.
yes. So what happened earlier this week? They just made a blog post, made an announcement. Hey, an event's coming up. When? Today. Now. So this dropped. I believe it was Monday, right? It was like right on
Yeah.
Monday. And we got Taverns of Time back in Arena. If you guys don't remember, this happened quite a few years ago. It was a pretty cool event. Look, people complained about Cavern Dreamers back then. Good thing that that doesn't happen anymore. But it was one of those events in which was really unique because it was just for Arena. You didn't see these cards in Constructed. So back then it was like, wait, people are paying attention to Arena. You're having a strictly Arena event. Really cool. I'm not really shocked that they brought it back just because there is more of a focus on Arena. Some people say it's popping off. I don't know why, but it would make sense to kind of use these old assets, shake them up a bit, and throw them back in, and that's exactly what we got.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. We're always scared when Taverns of Time comes back because Taverns of Time was a pretty terrible meta overall back in the day because of a card that I'm sure the old school Arena players here will remember, and so will the new people, because that card was called Cavern Dreamer. And Cavern Dreamer was a mage card that was 1 mana, 1/3. 2 mana, 1/3. And it said at the end of your turn, add a random spell that costs 2 or less to your hand. So what happened was people would play it, they would get a spell, it would already be worth it, and then if you can't remove 3 health on turn 2 immediately, which back in the day you really couldn't the vast majority of times, and even today you can't most of the time, then it just stays around, and then they have small spells, which are usually very high tempo, to then use to protect the Cavern Dreamer, and the Cavern Dreamer never dies and the mage wins. So that was a bad meta for most people, especially skilled players. And we're a little, once I heard Taverns of Time, I'm like, I wonder if Dreamers is going to be okay in this meta because, well, not skill level, the power level of all the cards have gone up, right? So maybe Cavern Dreamer is not as ridiculous as it used to be. And we never got to find out, because they buffed Cavern Dreamer by making it 1 mana, 1/4 instead of a 2 mana, 1/3. So now it is the highest statted 1 mana card in existence, gives you a free card immediately upon playing, and if you don't get rid of the 4 health immediately, it keeps repeatedly giving you that card.
It is the most busted thing. It's so hilarious because they buffed a lot of the Taverns of Time cards, as they should, right? What they definitely shouldn't do is bring back an event with exclusive cards from, I think it's like 4 years ago at this point. I forget how many years ago. And expect them to do exactly the same thing, which is, have the same effect. So buffing is good. Cavern Dreamer just stands out as this anomaly. It's just like a LeBron James in a gym full of YMCA's. It pretty crazy. But we can go through all of the changes. This is also something that Blizzard didn't just push out. Matt London, others are kind of, they talked about it. They said that, once again, this goes along with what they've been saying all along. They want a little bit more focus on Arena. They are looking at Discover and additional things as well, and they want to put this out. It's all good. I mean, look, Cavern Dreamers isn't a great situation, but it's cool that we have one of these events, and we can talk about all of these new cards, because
Yeah.
I like a lot of these changes.
Yeah,
It's just
we'll
Cavern
talk about
Dreamer.
we'll talk about the new cards and the buffs. The Cavern Dreamer isn't the only one that's kind of OP, but it is like by far the most OP ridiculous one. And it's just so nonsensically OP that they had to have messed up. Like, this has to be like, it should never be 1 mana. Like, they wanted to make it a 1/4, and then someone messed up, and then it is now a 1 mana 1/4 instead of keeping it at a 2 mana 1/4. That just has to be, because you you can't be like, as someone who looks at it and thinks about it for more than like 5 seconds and knows anything about the arena, nobody can think this is even within the world of a possible tiny idea of a good idea. Like, there's just no way. Like, it doesn't. This is beyond the possibility of, like, devs being not good at the game, right? Like, even if they were like not the best at balancing or not the best at knowing what's going on, and this team seems like it's fine. I'm not saying they're bad. That this just is so out there that it has to be a mistake. Like, someone put a 1 instead of a 2, and so I assume it'll get fixed quick enough. I don't know when, but yeah, we're in the thing that accompanied this change, and we'll talk about afterwards. First, we'll go over all the cards. But the thing that accompanied the change is a reduction in Colossal and Discover offering rates. And that's going to have a huge impact. So you might think, oh, Keck W, this is a terrible meta. I'm not going to play in it because of Cavern Dreamers. But it's actually a pretty good meta right now from what I've seen. And that's not because of Taverns of Time. That's despite Taverns of Time. It's because of this gigantic reduction of Discover and Colossals that was pushed out, which we'll talk about afterwards. But let's talk about the new cards first, because it seems like this will be here a while, maybe all the way through until the next expansion launches. And we have a date for the next expansion launch too, by the way, which is August 2nd. So, get excited for that, which means our card valuation stream will be July 31st. And I will try my best not to be super jet lagged, but we'll see. So yeah. Taverns of Time. Let's go through it. Let's talk about the neutral cards first.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you want to do this? Because we need to look at two things at once. So do you want to be the changes person and I read like what it does?
Yes. Okay. I'll be the changes person.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And chat, please catch us if we miss something, because this is kind of a weird. There's no one place, by the way, where you can find all of these cards and how they're buffed. There's a list of buffs. And then there is a list of, the old like cards that is in the wiki.
I will say it does seem like the wiki has at least some. No, the wiki changed everything.
Oh, the wiki buffed everything already?
Yeah.
Oh, good wiki.
Wiki did.
Good wiki.
Good wiki.
All right. Well, in that case, let's just start. First one is Infinity Murloc. Infinite Murloc.
Not Infinity.
Oh, Infinity has a Y. Fine. Infinite Murloc. Battle is a 1-mana 2/2. Battle Cry. Shuffle an Infinite Murloc into your deck. Your future Infinite Murlocs get +1/+1. 1-mana 2/2. Good card.
It's nice. Yeah.
Like a Battle Mage. Next card.
Do you actually want to go through everything, or just what we think are the important ones? Because I think some are.
Let's just go through it. It'll be really quick. There's not that many cards. Next one, Temporal Anomaly, 2-mana 2/3. When you draw this, add a random spell to your hand from your class. So obviously, very good. It's Croc, and then it gets you a random spell. 3. Next is a 3-mana Timeline Witness, 3-mana 2/4. Instead of drawing your normal card each turn, discover a card from your deck. What do you think about that, Merps? First interesting card.
The real problem I see with Timeline Witness, and here's the thing, like, okay, I've played like one run since this has come out. I have watched a lot of it, all right? I'm like watching a lot more Arena than I'm playing it, because let's face it, that's just the smart move nowadays. Like, I get less frustrated. I still get a decent sense of the meta. That 2/4 just definitely hurts. And discovering a card is nice, but like deck quality is pretty high nowadays. I don't know. Like, I haven't been that impressed with the Timeline Witness, but that's me.
Yeah. I from what I've experienced in the arena, I streamed on Friday night, so I got in a couple runs there, and they were good. I don't mind this meta, surprisingly. But the Timeline Witness is not a great card. It is a okay card. 3-mana 2/4 doesn't do anything unless it lives, and it oftentimes won't live. And even if it does live, you get a free tracking, essentially. Like, it's fine, but you're giving up a stat for that, and it's probably not going to live for a very long time, being only at 4 health. So don't value this one too highly. It's also interesting that we don't have HS replay for any of these cards because they're not cards according to HS replay. You can't really look at win rates yet, at least.
The problem with a lot of these bad or like mediocre Taverns of Time cards is that you really don't see them that often. And this was like a Twitter thread as well, where they asked, I forget if it was Matt or if it was someone else. It's like, hey, I don't really see Taverns of Time cards. Like, what's up with that?
Really?
Um, yeah, you're expected to see like three cards. You might not pick all of them, but you're expected to like
Oh my
see
god, I see
three,
them
I
all
believe.
the time. Really? You're expected to see three? I must have been getting, I was offered 10 times per draft Taverns of Time cards. Like, I guess I rolled high on both times. I mean, not really high. These cards are not all, like, they're mostly not that good. But yeah, I got a lot of Taverns of Time offerings, and I faced a lot of these too. Like, I think you could definitely feel it in the game, like when you're playing. You see these cards around, like people are picking them. Whether it's the right choice or not to pick them is a different story, but people are picking them.
Yeah, so I will say a lot of them are pretty decent. There are some in which you don't want, like just kind of period. But there's also some that are just like, okay, like that's just really good, right? Like, especially some of the class ones. We talked about Cavern Dreamer, but then there's like Chrono Shot,
Yeah.
right? Oh my gosh, that's just like buffed sap. That's incredible. So there are some really really good ones, and yeah, there's some like not so great ones as well. But it does make it a situation where I think some people, because this is a limited time event, they want it to be more Taverns of Time esque. And that's not really the case. It's not the Taverns of Time meta. It is a meta that just happens to have
Yes.
a few extra cards in it.
Exactly, but that's
Yeah.
good. You don't want it to be a
Yeah.
Taverns of Time meta. That's a crappy set that's like focused on RNG and doing weird stuff. As a good arena player, you don't want this set in to be seen that often. You don't want them to buff these cards. Like, these cards are about as buffed as you can take. If they buff them even more and they actually get picked at the level of something like Gangplank or whatever, it's going to be an awful meta. So I think you see like these cards about 10 times per draft, and you probably draft them about 3 times because they're kind of like average cards in your deck. Like, I think they did a pretty good job of changing the stats around and the mana costs around for these cards to make them essentially the average card in an arena deck. And so you're going to draft them sometimes, but not like super frequently when you see them. So it does, like when you're drafting, it really does feel like a Taverns of Time meta. In the actual game, they're just support because they're not your best cards for the most part. So the next card is a 4-drop. These are all neutral. Possibility Seeker. It's a 4-mana 4/6 dragon. That's right, a 4-mana 4/6 dragon. Battle cry. Shuffle your hand into your deck. Draw that many cards. So you may think 4-mana 4/6 totally busted. It's not. 4-mana 4/6s are just like, the meta has gotten so, like, the card quality has gotten so high that a 4-mana 4/6 is really not all that great. Like, it's really good, but it's not like this would not be an A tier card, which is a very, like, it's a terrible thing to say, but a 4-mana 4/6 dragon is not a tier card. This is just like a B tier card. And the shuffle hand into your deck could be used as a positive, but if you're playing it on curve, you're probably using it as a negative because you probably already played your small cards and you want your big cards. You may already have a 5-drop that you've saved up, and instead you're ditching it. Like, I had this card in my deck, and the vast majority of times, the shuffle your hand into your deck ability was a negative rather than a positive. That doesn't mean this is worse than a Yeti. This is better than a Yeti. The 4-mana 4/6 is still really good.
Oh yeah, it's much better still.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's not
yes.
like a broken neutral card. Like, in case people were still thinking, like, tempo is very important right now. We went over this last week, and that hasn't changed. But even with tempo being that important, this is not like a busted neutral card at all.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, it's quite good. Like, I don't understand why it still has to have like a dragon tag on top of it, and I think a decent amount of times you're able to turn it into a positive. Um,
Yeah,
And
only if
it's
you're not
like,
playing it on curve though. Like when on curve, when it's the most powerful, it's a negative.
no, like, is it?
Yeah, because on curve you've already used your small drops, and then when you throw them in, you get a bunch of small drops back. Oftentimes, that's just odds. That's just the probabilities. Like, what have you generally played by turn 4, right? You've played your 1 drop, your 2 drop, your 3 drop, probably not really a removal, definitely nothing above 4 mana. And what does Possibility Seeker get you? Well, it takes your removals, your utility cards, your 5 mana plus cards, shuffles them back into your deck, and gives you random cards from your deck. So it's just generally worse on turn 4.
All right. So, that's one that you will draft a decent amount. You will see a decent amount as well. I would say that card is one in which it seems like people are not, if not auto drafting it, they draft it very high, and I think for good reason.
It's a good
It's
card.
quite a good
Yeah,
card.
it's a B
So
tier
it should
card,
be.
maybe
It
even a
should
B plus
be.
tier, but it's not A tier.
And B plus is very good.
Yeah,
That's like
it's where
it's
we
like
used to have
night.
Night Captain.
That's like Night
Yeah,
Captain.
I don't think it's
Yeah,
B
that's like
plus. I
Night
think it's
Captain
just B,
levels.
but that's just me. Like I can see the argument for B plus, especially with the dragon tag, right? But I think it's just
Yeah.
a B tier card.
So that's definitely one of the defining cards of Taverns of Time.
Yep. Okay, next up is Chromie. 4 mana, 5/5. Battlecry, shuffle 4 historical epochs into your deck. Uh, so I don't have much to comment on it. I have not seen this actually like happen. What are the epochs?
Oh,
Like,
sure.
okay, here we go. Oh no, I've seen this
Yeah.
happen once. Okay, so the epochs are cards that automatically cast when drawn. One gives your minions +2/+2, one deals 2 damage to all enemies, one adds 2 random spells to your hand, and one adds 2 random legendary minions to your hand. So all very good, and it's a 4 mana 5/5. So this is gonna be a very good card. I just hadn't seen it that often. Like, is this offering rate normal? I must have lucked out to have not like seen my opponents like have this card if the offering rate is normal. Chromie is a legendary. Ko says in chat. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Oh, did you not see that? I was like, wait.
Well,
What
it
do you
doesn't
mean
show it in the wiki. Everything like there's no rarity tag to these cards in the wiki. They all look like they're basic cards.
Oh.
So I don't know where you're getting that it's a legendary from looking at the wiki. But Coast in chat says
No,
Matt London confirmed
it has the dragon wing on top.
Oh, I see. You're looking at the shape of the card. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no like because
I was
normally
really confused. I was like, wait, what do you mean you can't see it? Like I had to go back. I'm like, are we looking at a different wiki?
Okay. So you know the rarity orb that usually tells you what rarity it is. That's what I'm looking at, and that doesn't exist. So this is like a basic card. Basic cards don't have the rarity orbs, but legendary cards are shaped different than regular cards. They have the dragon wing, and this one does have the dragon wing, which I don't really look for generally. I didn't notice.
Oh my god.
So Chromie is a legendary, and it acts like a legendary, and it is very good, and you should pick it.
Oh, okay. Yes. Someone in chat is reminding that we had the same exact conversation when they introduced Taverns of Time. Wow. First of all, that is a devoted viewer with a very good memory. But yes, I would also not be surprised if we had this exact same conversation of you discovering the wings on the card.
Well, it's just irrelevant for everything except this one exact scenario, so I didn't commit it to memory because it wasn't worth it.
Uh-huh.
And now they brought it back, and I'm like, okay, that would have saved me like 1 minute.
So are you gonna commit it to memory now?
No, I'm not going to. If they do it, if they create more arena cards, I'll start committing it to memory. Arena only cards that follow this pattern. Like you gotta save space in your brain. Like otherwise you fill your brain with all this junk. And
it seems like you've been saving a lot of space. Maybe it's time to use some of it.
No. The time is coming. There will be useful things in my life. You know, like when I have a child, and I want to remember things about my child. That'll take up some of my brain space. The dragon wings on Hearthstone, low priority. Okay.
All right.
Next up is a 5 mana card, Timeway Wanderer. 5 mana, 6/3. Battlecry. Discover a spell. Reduce its cost by 5, and then put it on the top of your deck. Merps. This is a juicy one.
It's a juicy one. It's one of those cards in which the problem part of the problem is beyond the stats, beyond the fact that you you don't I mean you lose a draw because you don't it's not like you're drawing it immediately.
But you
You
don't.
don't get the card
I mean,
immediately
okay, you
as
don't
well.
lose a draw, right? You just don't gain a card.
Yes,
You're net neutral on number of cards.
you're net neutral. And yeah, I guess you can hit some big ones, but I just have not been impressed by this at all.
Mm,
Yeah, like it's just really like, and sometimes if the choices are bad, it feels terrible, right? Because you have dropped a significantly undersized minion on that turn in which, like you said, tempo matters. So you do that, and then you know your next card sucks.
yes.
Like you know your next card sucks. Um, that's death right there. That's like that's just dying. Dropping understated minion and like having nothing in your hand. And then if you already had something good in your hand, I guess that's great. But in those situations where you are relying on it somewhat, man, that really
Yeah.
hurt.
The swing is big because you don't just need like a good card. Obviously, good card is highest priority, but you also need it to like cost some mana. Like if you get a really good card and it's 2 mana, you're like, okay, that was okay, I guess, for Time Way Wanderer. Like if it did this every single time, it may be rated like a C. Like it's just not very exciting. You have to get like a sizable card. It's gotta be like 4 mana spell that is also good, and you only get 3 choices. So oftentimes you're left with like just purely bad stuff, or there's one decent option, but it's a low mana spell. So yeah, that's not to say it's not like a card that you can put in your deck. I think it is a okay enough card to put into your deck, but it is not a great card. I know some people go crazy over this when they first look at it, but its downsides are very real, and its swing is huge.
Yeah, it's the real problem with it. It's not even like a lifesaver kind of a card. Like it could be, but you need to then have your opponent go, and
Hmm.
then you draw it. It's not even like a conjurer in which you like get it right away, right? So even though you don't get that discount a lot of the times with the conjurer, it's like okay, well at least I get it for this turn. With this card, it's like I need to wait a turn, and
Yeah,
then the
that's where
discount.
tradable comes in.
Yeah, no, I mean it is like that. That's good that sometimes you can get it straight away and then it is cheap, etc., etc. But man, like it just seems like this is you're really gambling here, and for a lot of classes, it's pretty bad. Like
Hmm.
you know, you can think about, for example, the Arcane Overflow or the Rune for Mage. Those are really great. But even for mage, if you bust, right, and you only get like, I don't know, an arcane intellect or something, or you get like some crummy secret, that's probably game losing right there, unless your hand is really good already.
Hmm. Yep. The 6/3 stat line is so bad these days. Okay, Wildlands Adventure is next. 5 mana, 5/5, Battlecry, add a random card from the Hall of Fame to your hand. If you guys remember how good Big Ol' Whelp was, which is not all that great, actually, even in a dragon meta, this card's way worse than that. It's not a dragon. You do not draw a card. The Hall of Fame has worse cards than your deck, and you just get a random one. So I see a lot of people actually drafting it as if it was like a decent card. It is not. This is like a pretty low value card. Like it's not bad. You're still getting a card, right? But the odds are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Next up, Stasis Dragon. 6 mana, 10/10, starts dormant. This awakens with Rush after 2 turns. The one of the original dormant cards. This is still good. It was good back then. It's good now. It's not brokenly good, but it's a 6 mana 10/10 still, and you only have to wait 2 turns. The second turn that it pops up, like you have Rush, so it's only like kind of like skipping a turn.
Great, you've had good experiences with it. I've seen it. I'm like, man, this seems a little bit slow.
I
Like,
mean, it is 1 turn slower, but it is very big,
it is very big.
and the stats kind of just overwhelm the disadvantage of it being like normally you dormant for 2 turns, and that's with Rush. That's the equivalent of adding 2 mana to your card and what it's supposed to do, right? Like think about something like that 2 mana demon that's a 3/5 Rush. Well, here you're putting it into dormancy for 2 turns, and you're getting what, like at least 6 stats back. If you think a 6 mana 7/7 is the normal right now, you're getting at least 6 stats for that extra turn lost, which is huge. Like that's bigger than what you should get. So yeah, some of the stats are kind of useless, but I think it compensates for it. These kinds of like dormant cards are all like pretty good with Rush. And it's dormant, right? A lot of times, especially in a combo meta, you just want to like have things that trigger later.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Morazond, 7 mana 6/6. This one's another legendary because I see its portrait has the weird dragon wings. And it is a dragon battle cry. From now on, your turns are 15 seconds and you draw 2 extra cards.
I don't think this is in the arena.
I see. They
took
removed
this away,
it.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. Next one is Time-Bound Giant. Time-Bound Giant is 15 mana, 8/8. Costs 1 less for each card you've drawn. So that's okay, but also not great because by turn 8, it's a 7 mana card.
Well, you're supposed to combo it with Possibility Seeker, you know?
Okay.
So what you're supposed to do is like, let's say you have double Possibility Seeker, right? Do you draft the giant? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Depending on what else it's up against. But yeah, like if you have like double Possibility Seeker and it's still and you're like 20 cards in and the next card is like a giant, it's like, oh, well, I could still get like another Possibility Seeker, and that would be, like, once again, it's a good card, right?
Yeah.
You will probably just want to draft one anyways. You're happy with that. So yeah, this is a card in which if you don't have any Possibility Seekers, probably not. Like it's quite slow.
Like
but
someone in chat says that what was good on Warlock. I could see that.
Yeah,
it's just,
like
it's one of these things, right?
It's
where it's
okay
like,
in Warlock. It's like
yeah,
okay.
It's like a late game card that does nothing but provide stats for lower mana, and those just kind of don't cut it in Arena. Like they're not bad. You're not like looking at this and you're like, oh no, it's an 8 mana 8/8. No, it's gonna be better than an 8 mana 8/8, but you're not gonna be able to like get the tempo out of it for a while. So, all right, that's Time-Bound Giant. Like I don't think it's bad. I think it's probably better than the average like cards you're offered, but it's not better than the average card in your deck. All right, let's go to class cards. Class card number 1, Flash Forward, 2 mana. Each player gains 2 mana crystals and draws 2 cards. I haven't seen anyone use it. It is bad. Next up, Harbinger of Catastrophe, 6 mana 6/7. At the start of your turn, summon the highest cost minion from each player's deck. Oh my god, I have not seen this in the game yet. This is crazy.
I have not seen that either.
Holy, okay. Well, that is super craziness. Yeah, I mean, depends on what you have in your deck, right? Very deck dependent. All right. Next up is I do not want to see that card. Next up is Hunter, 2 mana, Chrono Shot. Return the enemy minion to your opponent's hand. It costs 2 more. Welcome to Super Sap.
Yeah, incredibly good. Like you could target it. It's just, it's amazing. Like Sap would still be good in today's meta, and this is a Super Sap. So I don't know why. I don't know why this is necessary, but it's fine, right? It's a limited time event. Create some busted cards. That's okay.
It is not okay. This is terribly super OP, but whatever. At least it's like a one-shot card, right? Like people have like you're looking at it and you're like, oh no, it's super OP and whatever. Well, Hit It Very Hard exists. And yeah, it's like a A tier card or whatever, right? And this is better than Hit It Very Hard. But it just makes it one of those S tier cards, like Taverns, that you would want the offering rate reduced, but it's not like yeah, I don't know. I don't like S tier cards regardless, but it's probably not breaking the game. Okay, 3 mana 5/5 Infinite Wolf. 3 mana 5/5 Rush. After this attack, shuffle it into your deck and give future Infinite Wolves +2/+2. So it's 3 mana, deal 5 damage on the board, which is already good. And that's kind of just what it is. There's a little bonus, but for the most part, it's a 3 mana, deal 5 damage, but it's Rush.
Yep.
Mage, Cavern Dreamers, we talked about this. It is a 1 mana 1/4. At the end of your turn, add a random spell that costs 2 or less to your hand. Get this out on turn 1, you win the game.
Yeah, this is what's plaguing the meta, right? Like, people are. I think without Cavern Dreamer, people would like this meta. I think, and I think that people would look at this Taverns of Time and be like, "Hey, this is pretty cool. I like Possibility Seeker being in." Even something like Chrono Shot, I think you're typically more okay with OP removal rather than an OP one drop. Like OP one drops are just those are like yikes, right?
Vibes of
Especially
Gennard.
yeah, like Gennard, or if you were boomer enough to remember the old days of turn one zombie chow and
Oh my
that like
god.
deciding the game, like terrorizing people, right? Turn one zombie chow. One drops having a disproportionate effect on winning feels terrible. And right now, there's just no one drop in the game that really challenges it. It's like if they drop Cavern Dreamer, your best bet is to like drop a Pelican, but it's the Cavern Dreamer still gets value. It's like that's sort of like the best case realistic scenario in which you have a Pelican, but even then it's like you have already
Gotten a
lost
card.
something there. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've already lost something there. That just, man, that feels bad.
Yeah. This should be like 3 mana. Okay, next up, consider the past. 3 mana, add 3 random spells from the past to your hand. Like 3 mana for 3 cards. Ooh, that's pretty good, right? Spells from the past are not that great, so not actually a very good card. But you are getting a lot of stuff. Like, I don't think it's an undraftable card, but it is probably not as good as it seems.
Yep.
Next up, you get the Paladin cards. First, 0 mana, Blessing of Aeons. Give a minion at the end of your turn, gain +1/+1. 0 mana, +1/+1. Sign me up. If this thing keeps living, it keeps growing. I like it. Is it OP? Probably not that OP, but it especially in this meta where you're like, oh, they get a little bit of tempo. You're gonna kill it at some point anyway. But it is certainly a good card. And the other Paladin card is a 5 mana 6/6 dragon, Bronze Broodmother. When you draw this, summon a 1/1 Wee Whelp. I mean, I don't know. Why is it a 5 mana 6/6 already overset a minion that then has a bonus? Like, I don't quite understand. Why couldn't it be a 5 mana 5/6?
I mean, we have Spawn of Deathwing. Which I know the answer is like, well, we shouldn't have Spawn of Deathwing. That is true. That is true. I agree. We shouldn't have Spawn of Deathwing. But Spawn of Deathwing is here, and so like compared to that, it's nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's true. Like we said, right? Like the 4 mana 4/6 is not breaking the game. A 5 mana 6/6 is also not breaking the game. That extra 1/1 whelp added in is also not breaking the game. But this is definitely like an A tier card. I'm just annoyed by cards like these that so blatantly disrespect the Yeti like stat line.
Yeti is a thing of the past. You gotta let it go. It's just not a thing anymore. Let's face it.
It's not a thing of the past. It's still here. It's
Well,
alive.
no,
and kicking.
it's here, but it is like a thing of the past. Like it's still here, unfortunately. But man, its time is It is the hunted now. All right, it is definitely not the hunter. It is the hunted.
All right. Next up is Priest. Reminisce. 2 mana. Add 2 random cards your opponent played this game to your hand. I mean, 2 mana, 2 cards, gated by game. Seems pretty fair. I don't know what else to say about it. It's not particularly interesting or anything, but it's a good card addition spell for Priest. 1 mana, Ripple in Time. Discover a minion. If you play this turn, it has Echo.
It's like, so first of all, I've actually seen a lot of Arena since this event. You just really don't see much of these cards, period. Like, some of these cards, I'm just like, oh, wait, yeah, this is part of the event. I just, like, never see it. Ripple in Time, the problem is a lot of times you will just want to discover something big. So the extra effect, it's like, yeah, that's nice and everything, but small cards being played multiple times is a lot of times not as good as a big card played once or maybe twice potentially, like if it's 4 mana. But yeah, like those 8 mana, 9 mana, 10 mana bombs are really where it's at. Not kind of like, oh, 2 mana 4 times, ha ha ha. So the effect really isn't that useful. Like it's you could get some extra value sometimes, but what you're hoping for is to actually not use the echo effect because you just discovered a game-winning big drop, of which there's a decent amount right now.
Yep, I totally agree. Next up is Rogue. First card, 0 mana, Deja Vu. Discover a copy of the spell you played this game. Okay. This, unlike the freaking Priest one, is actually really good. Because, 1, it costs 0 mana. 2, you're going to be able to play pretty much any spell that you played before in this game, including a coin. And that is very, very important. Because sometimes you want a second coin. And it is very, very important that you have the second coin. And in that case, you can use this as the second coin, pretty much guaranteed. On the other hand, you can also just discover a spell that you really like that you played, and you would just get it again. It's a super powerful card.
All right.
Okay, and then Thief of Futures, 3 mana, 4/3, Battlecry. Add a copy of the top card of your opponent's deck to your hand. On curve card that gives you a free card. Nothing, no big deal. These are just cards now. I don't know why that card exists, but like it's fine. It's not breaking the game. Down to Shaman, Master of Realities, 6 mana, 5/8. After you summon a minion, transform it into a random minion that costs 2 more. Master of Realities. It is a 6 mana, 5/8, so a normally statted minion. And it has the ability to transform everything you play into something 2 mana more, but random.
So what do you think?
I mean, it's good. You want to transform into something that's 2 mana more. That's better than whatever you're putting out, but it's not like super broken. You gotta combo it with the stuff that you summon that's like 4 mana, but it's actually a 1/1. Or like,
it's just kind of funny. I look at this combo potential, which really isn't that much of a combo. It's like, okay, have a Battlecry 5-drop, right? For example, or have even a normal 5-drop that has already hit once, that has value traded, and is now like a 5/1, and then you can do it. I mean, that's really, really good. But
no, this is after you summon a minion.
Oh,
it only comes upon summoning, so it's only the Battlecry situation, and it doesn't have to be a 5-drop. It's just whatever.
I have not seen this one either.
I haven't.
You just really don't see Taverns of Time cards.
No, you do see Taverns of Time cards.
No, I see Possibility Seeker a billion times, and then sometimes Cavern Dreamer.
I think you just don't see these classes. Like that's the problem.
That's true. No, that's true. Yeah, and that's why you see Possibility Seeker so often compared to everything else.
Yeah,
right?
Because the Caverns of Time cards are in the game, but like some of these we're talking about, like Shaman, if they're not very good right now, and I don't have the win rates in front of me. Let me go look at the win rate. Because some of the classes right now have really terrible win rates. Like, yeah, Shaman has a 42.7% win rate. Who's playing Shaman? Priest, which are the cards that you said you never see, has an under 42% win rate.
Yeah, when we were going through Priest, I was like, oh, these are cards. No,
Yeah.
no, it's true. You don't see Shamans, you don't really see Priests. Everybody is jamming mages though. Right? Like, everybody is jamming mages, and it's just like, oh my god. Look, I get it. Like I understand. Cavern Dreamer is out. It is just the easiest win condition in the game right now. Supremely OP. It's also got the efficiency bonus, as in you drop it, and then by like turn 3, you probably win. They might even just concede by like turn 2.
Insta concede. Insta concede. Why would you play that game? It was a waste of time.
Well, I saw this picture. I think somebody posted it on our Discord, in which it was like turn 3, and they I think they put turn 1 Cavern Dreamer into turn 2 double Cavern Dreamer, and it's just like
Wait, what?
Yeah, I think there's a picture
Oh my
there.
god.
I mean, you're going to generate a response, right? Like with that much stuff, and it's stupid. And you're going to generate too much, like your hand is going to be full, but it doesn't matter. You do that because they're just going to concede. So, yeah. It's really stupid.
Let's look at cards that you're actually going to see. The next two classes, Warlock and Warrior, are number 2. Warlock is really not that far from Mage in terms of win rate, because you have to be offered the Cavern Dreamer, pick it, and then have it show up early in your hand for it to be like super bunkers broken. So Warlock has a similar win rate, and Warrior is still above 50%. So Warlock has Grasp the Future. 4 mana, draw 2 cards, they cost 2 less. So, kind of an awkward free 2 draws. Warlock draw cards are all bad. But this one, like, you have to get to the level of it basically being free draw 2 cards, just a little awkward that you could use eventually, for it to be good. So this is a good Warlock card. But it is not a broken Warlock card by any stretch of the imagination. Mostly because drawing cards in Warlock is just not as useful as in other classes, given the hero power. And then next is Rift Warden, 7 mana, 7/7 dragon, Battlecry, discard a random minion, Death Rattle, summon it. It's good. Very good.
Yep.
It's a little slow. You do have to discard a card. I drafted it and played with it. I thought it was going to be like busted. It was busted like once. And the other times it was like just a good card. So I think this card may not be like as busted as it appears on its face. Just because you're often going to have small cards in your hand, or you're going to have to purposefully delay playing it for a while, which eats into its value. And so then it's just random what you get. And you do have to discard a card for this to happen. Alright, Warrior. Draconic Herald, 6 mana, 6/6. Battlecry, it's a dragon. Battlecry, discover a minion. Give it +3/+3 and put it on the top of your deck.
Alright.
Yeah. Like, it's good. It's not amazing. But it's good. Pick it. Use it. And then Fate Cleaver, 4 mana, 4/2 weapon. After this kills a minion, destroy all copies of it wherever they are. This is generally a decent weapon. The ability triggers more often than you'd think, sometimes to your own disadvantage, where you can't kill something because you have it in your hand or even on the board. But it also gets rid of a lot of the pesky copied minions. So it does have they use triggers more than you would think.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are the Taverns of Time cards. It's interesting. Like, look, honestly, sitting here, not half, maybe like 30% of these cards, I had to look. I'm like, I have never seen this. I'm like, I have never seen this. Like, what is this thing? That's sort of what the event is. Like, yeah, you have these cards, but it really just feels like, okay, it's Possibility Seeker, obviously Cavern Dreamer, I see Time Way Wanderer a decent-ish
Hmm.
amount. The Anomaly, I see a decent amount as well,
I think
right?
they're all like
Uh,
overdrafted, by the way, but between people who just like think it's fun and people who think they're actually legitimately super good.
I think Anomaly, people, well, you have to shore up your twos, and it's not like it's a good two, right? It's like a good two. So, um, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I think people seem to be drafting these kind of appropriately. Like the ones that I see being drafted. Okay, Tommy Wanderer is one that I think I see a little bit too often, but I understand. People think it's fun, right? People think it's fun, but with how much I see Time Way Wanderer, I'm like, you're probably giving up a little bit of value here. But with the temporal anomaly, with how much I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay, I think it's being drafted at like a fair amount because I think it's good, right?
Hmm.
It's like quite a good card because you have your two drop and then you also can get that extra value later on in the game if you draw it, right? Kind of like balances out the shittiness of drawing a two drop in the late game.
Yup. Yeah. I think the Taverns of Time meta is less about Taverns of Time. What Taverns of Time does well is that it adds a few more cards into your deck on average. So the game is a little more drawn out than it would be otherwise. But the other factor, which we'll get into right now, is what's making the game actually significantly more tempo focused than even it was before. So we just talked about Taverns of Time and the impact that it's making. But the big impact is not actually Taverns of Time. The meta right now is Taverns of Time mitigating the big impact of the latest round of offering odds adjustment, which we'll talk about now. And they are gigantic and they have changed the game. And if they did not release Taverns of Time at around this time, oh my god, the reaction would be even bigger. Like, the meta is less balanced now than it was before this because, they added a whole bunch of new cards, right? So they haven't had a chance to adjust the offering rates yet. But, and they messed up Caverns. Well, I assume they messed up Caverns, which doesn't help things. But the big thing here is that they have reduced the offering rate of Colossals and Discover. And if you remember, what the number one like low level complaint that has been in Arena for like years is that Discover exists. There's no way to fix it, and it's making things crazy. And just because there was no realistic way to like fix it without spending a lot of resources, people just kind of gave up on it. But nobody forgot that Discover is a problem. That Discover is what's making a lot of the meta go crazy. So they have reduced Discover. I'll just give you some numbers. I'm looking at HS Replay right now for Venomous Scorpion, your prime common neutral Discover card, right? It got launched, and its percentage seen in deck was 26.5%. So that's how much people would normally take it and get offered it, 26.5%. When they nerfed its offering rate because, they wanted to turn it into a rare essentially, it became 13.5, let's call it 14%. It became 13.5 or 14%, approximately reducing in half the offering rate. That's what happens when you make a common card into a rare card. And so they did that. Venomous Scorpion was the only common card that they nerfed the offering rate of without nerfing it to be an epic, by the way, during that round of nerfs. It was kind of weird. But that was already, it already controlled the amount of Venomous Scorpions in the meta. With this round of nerfs, it is now sitting at 2%. So it went down from 13.5% to 2%. That is not an epic card. That is not a legendary card. That is ultra. That is raid boss Onyxia levels. In fact, I'm going to look at raid boss Onyxia. Raid boss Onyxia's old offering rate was about 1.5%. So they have basically turned Scorpid into the nerfed offering rate of raid boss Onyxia.
They gave it the sap treatment. It's like
Yeah.
a common card that they basically made disappear effectively from the meta, right? Because 2%, that's like disappearing levels.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they play it, you're just like, wait, what? Like you have this?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. Like we talked about it last week. They are not afraid to just really not ignore, but look past the rigid structure of the rarities and just ask what would we think, like would improve the meta, right? Like, common, rare, epics be damned. Um, if we just think a card is problematic, yeah, we can basically phase it out and just have it just being like the rare bomb that it is.
Yeah, and that is amazing. I don't even think they need to go that far. They went far with it. Like this would have been fine at legendary level. Like I wouldn't even have wanted it to be seen lower than legendary levels, which is around 5%.
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought that they would give it like a 5% treatment,
yeah,
right? This is
this is
a we
huge.
just don't want you to be able to see it. And if you see it, it might be frustrating, but don't worry, you won't see it for like like
Yeah,
quite
another
a few
few runs.
runs. Yeah, quite a few runs.
Yeah.
You just won't see it. So yeah, I don't know exactly how I feel about this right now, but I will say, like, do I prefer this or do I prefer the old Scorpid? Just kind
Hmm.
of like being very present and impactful in the meta. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll take this. Like I wouldn't
I'll
mind if
take.
Scorpion doesn't exist, right? Like so this is closer to that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Let me know what you think. I kind of actually would prefer if it didn't exist than if it existed at 2%. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'd rather it exist at 2% than not at all.
You'd rather it have
Yeah.
2%. I'd rather it just didn't exist than it be at 2%. Um, because then it's sort of like this is just a personal thing for me, right? This
Mm.
is just a personal thing. I'm not saying that like, oh, this is like obvious and the way it should be, but I'm curious as to know what you guys think as well. Like I felt the same way when, for example, Sap was super rare. So Sap was a little bit worse because it was an immediate answer in which the meta was very different. There weren't answers that were that good. So when I was facing rogues and then I was like, okay, well, I can't play around a sap statistically, but that means I'm just going to get ultra screwed during a small percentage of these times, but I can never play around it. Even if you were like at 10, 11 wins and you're facing a rogue, you can never assume they have a sap, right?
Hmm.
Venomous Scorpion is not exactly like that because it's not like the immediate guaranteed tempo swing of a sap. They can probably get something good. They probably will get something good, but um, yeah, like to me, this 2% thing is worse than 0%. It's not as bad as, what it was before, but yeah, I would rather just have it
Hmm.
disappear
I
than
can I
have
can
it appear
understand
in
that.
some.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I can
right?
understand that point of view. I just I think they went too far. Like you can look at what they did with School Teacher, right? Like School Teacher used to be seen 10% and then it became seen 5% because they nerfed its offering rates because they were like School Teacher is too good to be an epic, right? It's effectively going to be a legendary. Like fine. That was fine. And then they didn't nerf it again in this round. School Teacher's still seen at about 5%. But Scorpit went from essentially a rare card to a super legendary card like old RBO. I'm going to say old RBO now because RBO got nerfed again because it's effectively a Colossal card. They nerfed all the Colossal cards. But we'll get to the Colossal part in a sec. For now, just looking at School Teacher, I don't think like nobody thought there was any problem with School Teacher. I mean, okay, School Teacher also actually got nerfed, but
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think we have to differentiate when you say nerf
yeah, yeah, I
because
meant the
there's the
offering
offering
on
nerf and
nerf.
also the
Yeah,
stat
School
nerf.
Teacher actually
Yeah,
got
yeah.
stat nerf too. But it's just like if you have a card like Scorpid, I think it's probably fine as an epic card. It's definitely fine as a legendary card. Like, why nerf it beyond a legendary? Like, no one's running around saying Scorpion is as bad as RBO. Like, that's just not, like, it's not ruining games in the same way. So I think they did Scorpion and all the Discovers dirty. And honestly, I hope that they bring it back a little bit. Like, this is me taking a card that I would be happy to see out of the arena and just saying this kind of doesn't make sense that it's nerfed, the offering rate was nerfed this hard. Like this can be a legendary card, no problem, definitely. Like at my most conservative, I would have wanted this to be nerfed to be a legendary card. At my most conservative, not a super legendary card. Um, but yeah, I didn't go and look at every single card, but I assume that the other Discover cards are also nerfed. I'm gonna look at Pandaren Importer now. Yeah, it was 25%. Now it's like 7%. This one at least didn't become a super legendary. Like 7%, I think, is what Scorpion should be at. So they got Pandaren there, and that's good. I think that's a great change because Pandaren may not have been the highest win rate card, but it's that similar kind of problematic, right? Where someone plays a Pandaren, they effectively get the broken cards, and then bad things happen. So if you can't fix Discover in the game by making the mechanics differently, lowering offering odds is a bandage, and it's a good. I just think they really crushed Scorpid.
They did. They crushed it. And it depends how you feel about it, right? Like, is this a net positive? For me? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, yes. Scorpid sucks. Like, there is no world in which I like Scorpid decreasing in appearance rate. I'm just like, gosh darn heck, because that's what I say. That I really wish I would see more of this obnoxious, overstated Discover in a meta in which spells get more and more ridiculously powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen. That's the thing with Scorpid, right? It started off strong, and it's only become stronger
Yes.
because of how much better spells are
Yep.
as an effect. And Scorpid wasn't printed like a billion years ago. It was pretty recent, and even between the time that we first saw Scorpid and now, the jump in spell power is pretty drastic. And part of it also has to do with the rotations, right? They're tightening up the rotations a lot more.
Yeah. So it's a lot more new sets.
Yeah, you don't have like, oh, Witchwood is in. And I'm sorry, but Witchwood is always going to be the example of like kind of crappy old set or like boring old set. With like just pretty tame like everything. But yeah, you're just like, oh man, which wit is in? Like we're really kind of messing with the minion pool and the spell pool. No, everything's like really, really ridiculously powerful, and like basically 2 out of the 3 choices at the very least, you're gonna be picking from like a new slash good spell. So you're gonna get something real good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, this is all the discovery offering odds reduction is across the board, and it hit like a freaking truck. So you may be like, this meta feels pretty good right now, honestly. Like there's still huge swings because they haven't actually gotten rid of the top cards, and the top cards have gotten to that huge swingy level. But the toning down of Discover makes such a huge difference, and you're gonna feel it even more if they don't undo some of this whenever like the next expansion comes out and they presumably remove Taverns of Time, because Taverns of Time is like this ridiculous, somewhat Discover heavy, somewhat like random card generating heavy kind of mini set, and it has a really high offering rate in Arena. Not like for its card, right? Like there's only so few cards, but each card's offering rate is higher than a normal card, because it's an event. So whenever all that goes away, Arena's going to feel a lot more stable. So we're still in by the way, the meta we're in hasn't changed in that we're still in a tempo possible meta that also favors combos.
I like that phrase, tempo possible. No, that's great. That's great. Because that's exactly what it is. It's tempo possible, right? It's not, because we've had metas in which tempo is, it's not possible. Like it feels impossible, and it's negative EV if you are playing tempo. This isn't negative EV. You still will get punished, not punished, but like you're just gonna get like beat sometimes if you play tempo, and that's fine. You just have to accept that. Like you just need a different mentality these days. Like, it's like what you said. It's like, just don't feel bad.
Yeah, just don't feel bad.
Yeah, just don't feel bad. Like that's like, you might be laughing at home, but yeah, that you kind of have to do that because there is going to be some ridiculous stuff, right?
Yeah. And I think you're in more control now because the amount of times you see the ridiculous stuff has been significantly lowered compared to what it was before these nerfs and these changes.
It is true. Yeah, because if you consider, and you should consider, stuff like Scorpid, Colossals, all of that stuff, if that stuff what made you angry, raise your blood pressure, and you're like, they dropped this, and my incremental advantages that I gained from like turn 3 to turn 7 didn't matter because on turn 8 they dropped like I don't know, Gigafin or something. Yeah, you should be happier now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, if you just play a few runs, I think you really do feel it. This is like not one of those things where it's like, oh, it's subtle, but like 20% of things will be better or like whatever over the course of a long run. I think you feel quite like in a handful of runs, you will start saying like, oh, well, I'm getting more wins than I used to. Like crazy stuff is still happening. Those I could count my losses and the other crazy stuff that I may have beat with my own crazy stuff, and I could have crazy stuff in my deck. But I'm more in control of more of my games than before, which is because they've toned down on a lot of the more like RNG ridiculous swing elements of the game with these changes. This is a major change. This is like just a series of changes, right? First they move a little, then they move a lot. Now they move ridiculously large amounts in one specific area to target it down. And this is all good for a good player. All super good. Okay. We're going to talk now about Colossals going down. So, in case you were wondering about the Colossal part because you absolutely hate Colossal, first, you should be happy that you can't generate Colossals anymore as easily because Discoverers have all been nerfed down, including Discover Minions, Discover whatever. Like, all those cards are just dropped, so you're going to have a lot less Discovered Colossals. Two, all the actual Colossal rates are down. Raid Boss Onyxia, which is not a Colossal, but was the original Colossal Minion, so to speak, it was at 1.5% as an ultra legendary. It's now 0.2%. It does not exist in the game anymore. Ysera, by the way, not a colossal, but hey, let's nerf it anyway. Was at 3.5%, is now 0.5%. I don't know, just going down the list. Like, stuff got nerfed. Goliath was 2.5%. It already got nerfed. It's now 0.4%. Like, just everything got hammered. Neptulon was at 5%. It's now at 0.8%. Like, just going down the list. Just all those rates. Remember the Ibis got nerfed last time, and we were very happy about that. It went from it went from about 3% to 1%, and now it's at 0.2%, just like Raid Boss and Nexia. Like, they got hammered, okay? All the Colossals, all the, whatever. Which class is one of the weirdest classes? Paladin. Let's go look at Paladin and, I don't know. It's one of the ones I generally like. Oh, and before I get off, Ambassador Phelan also got hammered in its offering rate. If in case you're like, oh, is it a Colossal? Like, yeah, they treated it like a Colossal. It's seen more often than the other Colossals still. I don't think they hammered it as hard, but it definitely got hammered too. Where is this Paladin? Does this card not actually have a high win rate? What the hell? What are people doing with it? Or maybe it hasn't been seen often enough for it to really... Yeah, it's probably a low... Oh no, I have neutral cards only. That's why. I'm like, why is this Paladin Colossal not showing up? There we go. Leviathan at 5% more win rate than the next highest card in Paladin. That feels more right. Okay, so Leviathan was at 1.5% originally, and then after the previous round of nerfs, it was at around 0.8%, so it already got nerfed, and now it's at 0.05%. And again, this is of all decks, right? So it also reflects people play Paladin less, probably. It also, is just... There's a lot of factors into it. But you get the idea. These cards got hit super, super, super hard. We're not talking about a 50% reduction in offering rate. We're not talking about a 75% reduction in offering rate. We're talking about a 90-95% reduction in offering rate here.
That's hilarious, by the way, because like a 5% increase at the top. No, it really is just LeBron James playing at a YMCA kind of a thing. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
So yeah, I mean that's they saw the problem and they said, well, we're gonna keep these cards in. We're gonna make them not just super legendary offering rates, but ultra legendary offering rates, and we're gonna tone down the discovers. So they did all that. I got a Phelan in my last draft. They still exist. They're not gone, but you're gonna see a lot less of it. So the question becomes now, though, what the effect of this is. Like, will it be impossible to get 12 wins without one of these super rare cards? I don't think so. I think there's going to be just enough of a... Like, they nerf these cards so hard. There's going to be enough of these, of a population of decks, that you will be able to get 12 wins without these ridiculousness. And you will get these ridiculousness a lot less, and it'll just all feel better. Like, this is great, amazing change. And I'm not even, like I said, I'm not even against them undoing some of this, really. That's how far they pushed. They've pushed so far that, like, the super high skill people who, like, hate fun, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I guess you could have a little more fun than this. Like, this is very hard on the less fun or level. So they really went after it. I love it. But we'll see if they keep things at this rate when the next expansion comes.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about this week, and we still haven't even talked about, for example, the preview of the next expansion. They previewed a lot of stuff that's coming to BGs as well. Look, guys, if here's the thing. If you think you're gonna come here for like up-to-date BG analysis, it's definitely not coming from me, and it never would have come from this guy.
No. I think we're like dropping BGs for now. Like, until you start like playing BGs again, we're not just kind of not qualified to like talk more about BGs. Like, besides from like a kind of development perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. So look, BGs, if you're like, oh man, there's a huge shakeup. Yeah, look, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of stuff. I am not prepared to talk to you guys about this stuff, okay? You can go to other channels like BG's legend Dreads Gaming, right? And ask him how he maintains his elite 4K MMR throughout the entire ladder. Like, how he doesn't drop to 3K. I don't know. It's crazy. That man is just solid throughout. But if you're here for that, we're not going to talk about that much because I just don't feel confident enough telling you guys about that. Now, with the expansion, I will say, I have some thoughts about it, but we are still very early on. And I know some people out there are like, you got to talk about it as soon as possible. We've never really done that, right? Plus, I think next week, once we have some time to digest, maybe we'll know a little bit more. Can talk about it. I will say I am a little bit worried about some of the cards that have come out. But I like you didn't want to talk about this week, right?
I don't want to talk about BGs at all. I think BGs is going.
Not exactly BGs. Even the expansion.
Oh yeah, no. We could talk about the expansion next week. There's too much to happen in right now.
There's too much to happen.
Like, there's a whole new meta that's going to last for a whole month in the arena. Like, this is what's important right now. The expansion we could deal with later.
Yeah. So look, if you came this week and is like, I want to know your thoughts on all like the handful of cards that were revealed so far. No, I don't have any thoughts right now. I think it's interesting. I kind of like the horror theme to it, I guess. Although it's horror.
It's not horror. It's murder mystery.
So it's like cheesy. Yeah, it's cheesy, right? Yeah. It's like super cheesy. Everything's super cheesy. That's what you get with Hearthstone. Like, you have Murloc Holmes. It's like herpaderp. But yeah. So we're talking about this week. I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's like really exciting times. Mostly just because, remember, the Discoverers were nerfed, as in, like, for example, Scorpid, all that stuff was nerfed. This isn't the end, like, this probably isn't the end of what we're going to see tinkered with Discoverers. Because if you remember on Twitter, they're looking at Discover, and it seems like they're saying they're looking at how to solve this Discover problem, because it's only going to get worse, right? I don't think Discover the mechanic is ever going to be like, oh, we're just not going to print Discover anymore. It's a fun mechanic. Like, it's probably the most fun mechanic that Hearthstone has ever printed. And I think they feel like, okay, like the vast majority of players really like this. And I think that's like very much true. So we're going to see more Discovers. The problem is cards are only going to get better. Discovers are just going to get more, get better. But Discover is just inherently a little bit too OP in Arena, right? In which it's defined by lack of choice, by making the best out of a situation, opening things up, and discovering from a limited pool is really freaking good. Like a little bit too good. So it feels like what they're doing with, for example, the Scorpio change and with these Discover changes, like, look, we hear you loud and clear. You're tired of these
Yeah.
Discovers ruining it. This is sort of our solution for now, and we're gonna work on it. Whether it's
Hmm.
adjusting Discover rates, which obviously would take a lot more effort, whether it's, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what the solution is, but I like where this is going because it's even though I would prefer for Scorpion to just disappear rather than this weird like 2% thing, um this is good. This is an
Yeah.
improvement, and I look forward to seeing what they eventually do with Discover because it is a problem. It's going to keep being a problem, and I think they know they can't just be like, okay, 2%, like 2% on all Discovers from now until the end of time, because that's just not fun for people, and it's just not a good solution, and then people are going to get frustrated at this like 2% thing. So yeah.
Yeah. That's it's just the development team on Arena, this new modes team headed by Matt Lemon, has just been knocking out of the park one change at a time. So now they're fully ramped up, and this next expansion that launches is going to be their first, I think, like less experimental expansion, or maybe they'll experiment in other ways, but they at least got the core down, right? Throughout this expansion that we were talking about in Sunken City, they've like started doing things, they've started figuring things out. But this next one, I'm just expecting really quick and good decisive action and to have a good meta. Like to have a not just like oh, this meta's okay, I can still play Arena, but like an actual good meta. Because this current meta is like almost an actual really good meta right now. We're like getting like dangerously close to it. So that's kind of crazy. I mean, if you're an arena player, you'll know that whether you're talking about the early days with rose-colored glasses or the most recent, or like the stuff from 2 or 3 years ago or whatever, we rarely have good metas. Arena is always somewhere between a meta and a bad meta.
It's just unfortunate because when something like a specific card, like Cavern Dreamer, is quote ruining the meta, people catch on to that. And look, I understand. Does Cavern Dreamer on one, like, does it frustrate people? It absolutely does, and it absolutely should. And it's one of the worst offenders we have ever seen in terms of ruining a game because it does come out turn one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are so helpless, right, at that stage. You really can't do anything. You can't set up. There's like no setups at all. So, yes, it is actually one of the worst offenders in terms of ending a game and how you should justifiably feel towards it. But the meta is actually okay otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
In large part due to these other changes. It just kind of sucks because Cavern Dreamer is that bad, as in like the
Yeah.
card is that good.
They're
But yeah, the
gonna they're
situation
gonna
is that
update
bad.
it. Like they can hot fix it or like whatever, reduces offering to 0 or something. It's happening. It's happening next week. I'm gonna call right now. It's gonna happen next week. It's just such a problem, and it's so obvious. And like I'm sure they're there being like, all right, how do we screw this up? Who messed up the number and made it a 1 instead of a 2? That being said, when Cavern Dreamers becomes a 2 or becomes like a 1-3 or a 1-2 or however they change it, I'm sure it's still going to be really insanely good. Um, so I don't think you're gonna totally be rid of Cavern Dreamer whenever they do their like update. But it'll at least not be like as dominantly bad.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it for us today. Thank you guys for all of your support at the Patreon. That's patreon.com/grittinggoat. Thank you guys so much. I want to, I guess I'll announce right now, we'll talk more about it next week, but I am taking a almost 3-week vacation at the end of the month. So there will be no Lightforge and no Coop for 2 weeks, and then the coup that's supposed to happen after that is going to be the day that we do our card reviews, which is the 31st, and that will be the quote-unquote next Lightforge. So this season is ending bit early, and the next Lightforge and Coop coming next week will be our last in this season. I don't think we ever like leave for 2 months at a time, but we have this like large. Sorry, not 2 months, 2 weeks at a time. But we have this. We have a big, nice vacation plan. Me and Brand New heading over to the country of Mongolia because Japan won't let us. We wanted to go to Japan, and they were like, "No,
You were
here's
so
all these."
optimistic.
It got close, okay? I feel like they let people in and they have these tours and whatever, but it's just so many hoops to jump through that I'm like, all right, screw you, Japan. We'll maybe visit you later. And so we're going to the country of Mongolia, which will be nice because it'll be relatively cool in the middle of summer. And because I haven't been back to Mongolia in 5 years, which is, I have never not been in Mongolia for a period of 3 years at a time in my entire life, since I was a baby. And so this is not the Inner Mongolia, which is, where my family's from. But China's not letting anyone in, like even more so than Japan not letting anyone in. So I am not going to be able to go there. But still, it'll be a nice time to visit Outer Mongolia. Like the first true time I visited Outer Mongolia. I technically visited once, but not the same thing. So that'll be nice. And then we're going to South Korea afterwards. That's why it's such a long trip. So that'll all be really cool, and I'll hopefully have stories to share with you. And I will be, during this trip, working on Hearthstone card evaluations and being excited about the next expansion that's going to launch. I will not have internet probably in the middle of the grasslands, but I will get it back when we're back in the city, really, in Ulaanbaatar. But also when we're in South Korea.
He's giving up Diablo Immortal for a while for this.
Oh
wow.
My god. I'm so sad about that. I'm so sad that, like, one, I actually literally won't be able to even do logins when I'm on the plane, and it's a 20-hour trip, and when I'm out in the grasslands probably. And two, that even when I do have internet, I'm like still not going to play much Diablo Immortal when I'm on this trip. I'm going to be so far behind. You know what? I'll experience firsthand what it's like to catch up. Because the whole point of Diablo Immortal is you should be able to catch up if you quit for a while. That's like the whole entire point, right? With the server levels and everything. And we have friends who's like catching up quite well to us by like switching servers. So I'll experience it firsthand. Okay. That's it. That's it for us. Remember, there's still one more Lightforge and Coop next week. I'm just announcing this early. And until next week, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys.